Where's the love? Where's the love? It's right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant, and I got my man with me.
Yo.
TL, what's up?
I'm good, man. What's up with you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Yeah,
good.
man. I'm feeling real good today, man. Weather beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Last week I had to,
Yeah, the pastel.
Yeah,
last
the pastel.
week.
Today I'm going, all black, man. You know what I'm saying? But I feel good today, bro.
Good. I meant to do this last week, and now I got to double back and do it twice. We had a couple of good recordings with some people from our tribe, right? Scooty, Trey Kelly were the most recent ones that we had come in, and those conversations raised sub-conversations around just the tribe and the people we know in common.
Yeah.
And we lost some people in the last couple of weeks in the larger sort of circle. About 3 weeks ago now, Field of Future, prominent artist here in D.C., a guy that waved the flag for a lot of us, was unfortunately killed in D.C. at his business, right? His place of business. And then most recently, Van Ash passed away.
Yeah, man.
Unfortunately, about 2 days ago.
Rest in peace to Phil. Rest in peace to Van. It's another brother. I didn't know the brother, but one of the beauties of social media in a way, I guess. And it's also kind of bad because you get all that vicarious trauma. But there's a guy named Tommy.
Yes.
I didn't know him personally.
Yeah,
but
same.
I saw that a lot of people I know really well was like, showing a lot of
faith-based guy too, from what I heard. Like really active in his church. Unfortunately, was murdered.
Certainly, rest in peace to him. And also Kenilworth Fest passed.
Yeah, saw that too.
Rest in peace to Kenilworth Fest and the whole Kenilworth crew. A really beloved guy. And then like a little cousin to me, Norwood. That's a lot of dudes know his father Chopper and his mom named Kim.
Okay, yeah.
Norwood passed away as well. Matter of fact, him and Fest funerals were on the same day, which was past Thursday. So yeah, man, to the whole tribe, to everybody impacted, and people that we obviously that we don't know, send our love and condolences. Brother Kirk from New Balance.
His father
passed.
Yeah, Kirk Taylor.
I want to give send love out to the Taylor family. And again we could get into that, but all this has literally happened. Within the last week or two, man. Yeah. And last but not least, I do want to the ribbon cutting was for Kennedy Rec Center, the renovation today, and I send a lot of love out to the Brown family, Anthony Brown. Call him Man. They call him Bando now, as a man, but when he was young, we called him Man. He passed away as well. But I guess that about 2 weeks now when they had that shooting up on 7th Street. So I just want to, shout out his family as well, man. Yeah. You know what's crazy too, bro? Also, I think this is important to raise up and, not spend a whole lot of time there. But today is April 15th, right? And my father went to prison April 15th, 1989. Right? 35 years ago, bro. And that day has always been like super sad for me. Y'all know I might post something. Man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And this is real talk. I ain't even trying to say this to sound sweet. I woke up this morning. I woke up about 4. And I dozed back off. And when I woke back up, I woke up to the sound of him going out the door, going to work. You know what I mean? But I still didn't think about what today was in that way. It'd be midday.
Did he think about it?
He texted me about this probably was 11:30, 12, something like that. Son, man, it's April 15th. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Because I think he probably said, damn, Slug, and he say, nah, I said, I didn't. And it just feel totally different. Yeah. And when we talk about freedom, I think about how, we freed from that. The trauma has happened, right? Of course, right? But just I know if he was still in today, would have been crazy for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I had the situation. I think I told you about that when I was riding with Rico and the Keith Sweat joke came.
We talked about that on here. Yeah.
We talked about that on here. So it's like that similar kind of thing, man. I'm just grateful for that too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, bro. So I think that's why I'm feeling really good today.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. I mean, all the things we just talked about with respect to the influential people who have been impacted by death. On the flip side, you all being impacted by a second life, right? All these folks are, again, within our overlapping circles, right? People who are influential in entertainment, whether it be music, fashion, whatever the case may be, lifestyle, culture. And when we had the conversation with Scooty, we went back as far as like 2011. In the last almost 15 years, all these different contributors have been making the mark for what we want our version of DC to be. And I think the one thing that we didn't touch on, which ironically enough, we got a guest today that I think can speak to that, is at a certain point, like when you're creating this culture, you got to get involved in policy. You got to get involved in legislation, right? You can't just sit out of that conversation. And in that same period, 2011 and into now, we've had some people come along that I feel like represent us, right? People who go down to downtown to City Hall and fight on behalf of everybody, but definitely keep us in mind in that fight. And we've been joined by at-large Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate y'all having me. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, except, for the fact that, it's tax day,
Yeah.
So,
Tell me
and
about
I don't get nothing back, bro.
Hey, bro.
Not
We
to
ain't
me.
even listen. That's okay. You just made now. I got depressed. Like, look.
Listen.
I'm gonna show y'all a text. I've been on the text back and forth with my accountant all day today, bro.
Nah,
But
it's tax day.
let me say this though, right? I look at it like this anyway. Yeah, we ain't getting nothing back, right? But I told this to my wife, man. There's some people, rather whatever the bill may be, it could be taxes, it could be electric, whatever. Man, I'm gonna be upset when we can't pay it, man.
Yeah, no, look. We're blessed to be in a position to be able to cut that check.
Yeah, man. But
I don't envy having to do it.
I swear.
But my wife, my road dog, like it's an annual thing, right? And so, it's part of life. I know I'm gonna die someday. I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. But death and taxes, y'all know the saying.
Yeah, death and taxes, bro.
So,
Only thing we sure of, right?
There's two things you sure of.
I was gonna get this started off on the wrong foot. I ain't gonna say what I was gonna say though. Death, taxes, and Hampton beating Howard.
No, I don't think that's a difference. Well, it's something. It means you say beating Howard and what?
Yeah.
Oh, that's you can beat Howard on the field. You might beat him on the court, but you don't beat him in life when it comes to academics and fulfilling your promise, right? So I think that y'all running a close second in that round, but but I think we did beat y'all in basketball. Yeah, because we went to the tournament 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what happened? Oh, I ain't been keeping up.
That's what happened. Yeah, we went to the tournament 2 years in a row.
Man, ain't nobody in the MEAC no more, so
Well, I know that is.
Oh, is that? That's when you said something like that was. Oh, you was hating. I didn't tell you what he said. Now it makes sense.
You ain't get it when he said it, but like
he said, he was like, they probably gonna go. They probably gonna go to tournament every year. I didn't know that was loaded like that. That's crazy.
We gonna get back to when we get. Yeah, we gonna get back to
that. Howard Hampton rivalry, man. Well, that's for certain too. It's always gonna be the rivalry, whether it's football, basketball, academically or what. I don't always relish being in the stadium when we up on the football field, and then y'all come back with some last second. Man. Yeah. I mean, this year we were supposed to win. We should have won.
Y'all was at that game, wasn't you? Audi. That was at Audi Field.
I was with him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh man. Oh, so you got some bragging rights there.
Yeah.
That was a good game though.
It was a great game.
But speaking of athletics, athletics have always been a major part of your life, right? I mean, going back as far as like Huck Hill, Kingman. Yeah. Talk a little bit about like how that has been intertwined in like your matriculation through this city.
Yeah, man. You name Huck Hill, man. Uncle Huck, LeBarry Williams, Mitch Creedle, Mr. Webster at Kingman, Boys and Girls Club. I mean, there's so many people who touched my life in a positive way, who at the time when you're experiencing this, you're just playing ball, you hooping, right? I didn't at least recognize the impact they were making on me to the point where, I mean, still to this day, patience, discipline, teamwork, defense, DC pride. I mean, those things I carry with me today. We broke a huddle every time saying that, and it's still in my head, 30-something, 40 years later now. You know what I mean? And so I still am in contact with them. And I'm still in contact with teammates, people who I came up playing, you know, at number 10, let me say it correctly, the Metropolitan Police Boys and Girls Club, number 10. Number 12, football, you know, number 9, that one year I played baseball and I sucked at it, couldn't hit a home run, so I ain't stick at the baseball.
Yeah.
I know how to score 3-pointers and score
Duckett
touchdowns.
was your coach there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Tony Duckett. Yeah,
Tony
he always
Duckett,
talks about
and basketball too, with St. Anthony's. But like Duckett, like I mean, like
DPW Tony Duckett.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So my mother used to work for him.
Yeah. I know, but I'm sitting here when you said that, right? And I'm thinking like, damn, I know that name. Well, I know that just came. So okay, yeah.
And the thing about it is, you know, I come from a 2-parent household. Both my parents, you know, they worked in government. You know, my dad was an electrician with DPW. My mom was a library clerk at the Library of Congress. And so I had a stable household. I never wanted for anything when I was a young kid. But there were several of my teammates who had different backgrounds, different family circumstances. But like being in that gym, having that outlet, I mean, it was like Switzerland inside the club. You know, you pick your club and you were probably in a tough neighborhood, right? Growing up in the 80s and 90s. But when you went inside those doors, I mean, people protected you, right? In fact, the homies on the block push you towards it, you know? And, you know, I still see people today. In fact, we had an event on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how that
it was really nice, man. We had an event because sports is something that still to this day anchors me and helps give me perspective about how I approach my role as a council member, as a legislator, as a public policy maker. I had an event where we talked about the role of sports in the District of Columbia, the role of sports for our youth, and how to, you know, I think make better and more investments in it so that more young people have the opportunities that so many people growing up when I grew up had. You know, we have a much larger budget in 2024, even with the tough financial times that we have a much larger budget now than we had in the 80s and 90s. And yet for some people, we have far fewer opportunities to get connected to sports in the way that we did growing up, right? And I'll take transportation as an example. I mean, one of the things that one of the young folks raised at this town hall on Saturday was the ability to have support and resources to go out of town for tournaments and things like that. I mean, y'all get the calls just like, because it's the work y'all doing, y'all get the calls just like I get the calls. And Jonathan on my staff, we get so many calls from you know, coaches saying, can you help me out, right? And these are coaches doing everything you want them to do. They got young folks with them. You know, they're giving them the development they need. They're trying to give them the support and resource they need. They're keeping them busy, sending them home tired so they go to sleep, right? And they went out here, won championships, football, basketball, whatever, pick your sport, and yet they can't afford to go out of town.
Which has really become a part of what happens now in these, I guess what you call little league sports, or my junior sports or whatever. More so, I think, you know, people understand.
And like, you know, in many ways, my memories, some of the memories are most indelibly etched in my mind is the bus rides. Right? Getting on that bus. Y'all know the bus, the blue buses. Remember the blue buses back in the day with the club? And then taking that trip, whether it was just to Richmond or whether it was to, you know, Raleigh-Durham, going and visiting Cameron Indoor Stadium as a young person. Man, I remember it like it was yesterday, right? Going to Bridgeport, Connecticut, Indianapolis, Indiana. Like, I mean, these are memories that I have with the people who I played with, you know, those lifelong relationships that I see. When we went to the Turkey Bowl, Silas, I was with you, we were walking around, I saw people I hadn't seen in years, man. In fact, the event that we had on Saturday, Poopy Blakeney, who coaches at Howard, was on the panel, right? And he talked about his experience growing up and everything. And then afterwards, Vaughn Jones came up. And I didn't know Vaughn was there, but I hadn't seen Vaughn in years.
How Vaughn good, man. Vaughn was one of the guys, when I came on as a roving leader, Vaughn was a roving leader back then.
Yeah.
That was my man.
And Vaughn, like to see all three of us, I asked Jonathan, I was like, man, take a picture of this, right? Because I remember being 8, 9 years old and playing in North Carolina, you know, and remembering this young kid who was playing up, might have been 16, 17 U, but he was dunking at like 14 years old. Yeah. That was poopy. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, Vaughn, I played with Vaughn. Mostly, I was in this position a little bit, you know.
Right.
I could hoop, but like Vaughn, Dwayne, you know, like those guys that was older than me. And like, you know, like they went on and they got to college, man. You know, people played Division I basketball and football. Like it exposed them to opportunities that I think these young folks, many of them, they aspired to play professionally. But part of what I was doing on Saturday too was not just to inspire more kids to want to be professional athletes. I wanted them to be student athletes, emphasis on student. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to understand the wide spectrum of opportunities in the sports economy in the District of Columbia, right? I want them to know about, you know, people who look like them, who are agents, who are managers, who are presidents of soccer teams, who are, you know, minority partners in ownership of these teams, right? And so part of this is, you know, trying to expose these young folks to what it means to be involved in sports beyond playing on the field or on the court. You know what I mean? And so it was the first of a series of conversations we're going to have. We thought it was successful. We had some good young folks there. You know, shout out to all the coaches who showed up. Yeah. Because it was several. It was packed in there, man. It was a great conversation. Shout out to you know, Councilmember Trayon White, who attended and spoke. All the panelists. We had people like, you know, Sonya Chase, who grew up in Baltimore, you know, played at the University of Maryland, you know, drafted the WNBA. We had just a good conversation, and I think it helped to you know, really give people an opportunity to talk about some of the challenges that they face in sports right now, and frankly, give me a mandate about what I need to do at the John A. Wilson Building to really eliminate some of the gaps and bring some of those student athletes closer to the opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about that, and I'm thinking about conversations that, you know, we've been a part of, whether it was publicly or even, you know, private conversations where I've often heard you reference a time at number 10 or a time at Kingman or somebody you played with, right? At Saturday's event, do the coaches still feel like, because I hear people saying, do the youngest want to play sports? How do the coaches see like the interest in sports today?
I think they are seeing still a desire of many young people to be engaged, but they also recognize just really a dearth of resources to support their efforts. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to suggest that there are no resources, right? Because there are. There's some things that are in place in government to support the student athletes and support the coaches, but not enough. And just it's just not enough. You know what I mean? Like if you are, you know, coaching an AAU team and you think about the travel schedule,
and cost,
right? And the cost. I mean, I use myself as an example. Like, you know, being a dad of some daughters who hoop, you know, I'm blessed to be able to see them play, but it costs to go all these different places. And what's different, and I talk about this, and maybe y'all can relate. You know, I know I talk to Jonathan about it all the time, but like when I was growing up, my parents didn't go all these places. Yeah. You know, my dad had a van, and he would go occasionally because he would pick some youngers up, or he might drive down there separately and meet us down there. But like we were all on the van. Like you meet at the club at a certain time, everybody pile up on the van, and you're out with your coaches. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you might have multiple vans because you got different ages. But today, you go to these places, and it's like parents, like all over the place, and it's parents with means, right? Yeah. It's the parents who have the money.
Yeah, they can.
Who can travel, pay for the hotels, pay for the food, and all those things that come along with it, the experience. And it's a great experience. But I think about how many young folks can't afford it.
And how
you know
many
what I mean?
kids that may stop or may not pursue because of that reason alone.
Yeah, and you have, there's some of these circuits that'll pay, for these kids, they sponsor, sneaker circuits and things like that. But that's usually when they're in high school, right? Like, so what are you doing for the young folks at that age? DPR has some programs, right? Like, there are programs that exist. And so I don't want to suggest that there's nothing out there for these kids, but it's simply not enough when you think about what we had 30, 40 years ago. I feel old saying that, but like,
that's what it is.
It's 30, 40 years ago. We were exposed to all this stuff. I mean, how many places did we go, right? Yeah. How many people did we meet? You know what I mean? I remember my brother coming home from going out of town one time. He went to Detroit to play. He was playing, and Mitch was his coach at the time. He might have been 12 and under. And he came home talking about this kid named Jalen Rose.
Yeah.
How tall he was and was handling the ball like a point guard, right? You know what I mean? Like I remember that. And then some years later, we see him part of the Fab Five, right? And like, I know my kids are gonna have similar experiences, but there's not enough young people who don't have that family structure that support those resources to be able to do that. And to me, it's a failure on my part and any other leader in a position like me if we can't fill those gaps and create those opportunities for those young folks, given the resources that the city has.
So, along those lines, right, you started talking about your mom and dad and their service to the city through their employment, and we're talking about families being able to afford children the ability to be able to play sports. Let's go back to the beginning of your career roots.
Yeah.
Right? You came out of what was formerly known as Wilson, now Jackson Reed. Talk about your mindset at that period, leaving high school and what you were going to do next, and then what you actually did.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a windy road getting to that point to go to Jackson Reed. It honestly, I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly, but I didn't choose to go to Jackson Reed. You talk about earlier, like parents. I don't know if we were. It was captured earlier when we were talking, but like, you have parents who get told by their kids what they're going to do because they aren't as involved in their lives, or perhaps just aren't as well resourced to understand some of the things that their kids are doing, right?
Yeah,
we all understand what that's like. My parents were involved up until a certain point in my life, but like, I went to public school early on, and then I went to Catholic school, but my parents worked 2 jobs apiece to send me and my 3 siblings. I have 2 older brothers and a younger sister, to send us to Catholic school.
What's the distance between you and your sister?
2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 grades, but 2.5 years.
You're the baby boy, though.
I'm the baby boy. And then I have a brother that's 2 years older, and a brother that's 4 years older. So we were stair steps, super tight, still are. And, when it got to, so I went to Shade Elementary, went to preschool at the rec.
Me too.
Yeah, came out with a little paper Catholic gown, then went to Shade, then went to St. Gabriel's up in Northwest, and then went to St. Anthony, and then went to Carroll. I was supposed to go to DeMatha. Both of my brothers were at DeMatha at the time, and I played ball. I played football and basketball, and I ultimately went to Carroll though because they were going co-ed, and I look back on it to laugh now, but like that was really why I went to Carroll. Like,
right.
It was DeMatha, but also because Carroll was whipping up on DeMatha around that time.
At that time, yeah.
Like they were like 89, like they were winning football, basketball. Marvin Graves, Lawrence Moulton, Charlie Harrison, the football team, Jimmy and all that. Like Carroll was killing it, and so the icing on the cake was the co-ed part. And so I went to Carroll, and then it was around a time where, and I didn't notice at the time, but like, and y'all got me. I mean, this is probably the first time I'm talking about this publicly, but like, I didn't understand what was going on in my household with my parents and my family, and my dad in particular, and some of the challenges that he started to experience. I just didn't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? I didn't know what it took to send 4 kids to Catholic school when they were doing it. You know what I mean? And I think all that stress, pressure, my mother she worked at the Library of Commerce, but she worked an extra part-time job at Hex. I don't know if y'all remember that Hex was like in Silver Spring.
Yes.
She worked at Hex.
Yes.
And my dad, though, he worked an extra full-time job at night.
Right.
He started off cleaning buildings and stuff like that, but then, worked his way up, supervisor, manager, and all that stuff. But like, it took a toll. I'll just say that. And the financial situation changed. And what I know now is that, I had to leave Carroll, right?
Right.
My brothers had gone to college, and they were both in college at the time. But I had to leave Carroll, and my father just enrolled me in Carroll. He, coach, I could hoop, went up there and I played ball. But coming out of Jackson Reed Wilson in 1993, June 17th graduation, I wasn't thinking about going to college. My two older brothers had gone to college. My oldest brother, Bing, went to Morgan State. Damon went to St. Augustine's in North Carolina. But they had left college. Willingly, unwillingly, they dropped out. They weren't in it. Right. And so for me, I looked at my brothers, and I had the benefit of seeing two people do it before me. And I'm like, all right, I'm not even going to waste time with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not going to waste time. And so I didn't even apply to a single college when I was coming out. My thought was, let me just go get that good government job. Yeah. I saw that model. You know what I mean? Some of the most, I wouldn't say successful, but like the people I looked up to in the hood, they had, Miss Butler was a postal carrier. You know what I mean? Like, they had the government jobs. It was very few entrepreneurs that I knew. Godfather Stanley.
Shout out to the Butlers too.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like so we had those anchors, and we had a close-knit blue-collar structure in Stronghold. And so my thought was, as that 17-year-old kid, let me just go get one of those jobs that everybody who I see, you know what I mean? What I didn't realize, man, they weren't just handing them jobs out when you get your diploma, right? And so I couldn't get a job. Me and my cousin went over to the Armory and took the civil service test.
Hey, hold on, yeah. Can I stop you right there though? We like this. That's important. I was about to stop you at number 12, right? Yeah. Because that no longer exists. I wanted you, but
number 9 over.
Or number 9. You said you played baseball for number 9. Real quick then. Yeah. Where number 12 was at?
It's over at Saratoga. Brentwood is what we call it. They call it Saratoga and Brentwood.
Right. And then number 9 was
Hamilton Junior High.
Hamilton Junior High. The Kip. Eddie Ellis on there. He was saying he played just, but
he did.
Right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So can you talk to people real quick though about what the civil service test was and why that joint was so important?
Yeah, man. It was essentially the entry point into government service.
Yeah, before USA jobs and all that.
USA jobs and all that, all the certs and all that other stuff. You took that civil service test.
You scored high.
And you scored high enough. And the thing about it was like back when my parents were in government, everybody knew somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody knew somebody. It was a way to get in generally, but you had to take that civil service test. You know what I mean? And so I took it, and I did pretty good on it, right? And I didn't have a preference about whether I was going federal government or DC government necessarily. I just wanted a good government job. And took the test, and I remember me and my cousin, we would talk like we did all right. Like that wasn't the issue for me, right? I was an average student, and I know because I had to go back and get my transcript when I was at Howard for some other stuff. But like, I was like a C student at Wilson. I wasn't knocking it out the park, but I was all right. And the call never came. Mm-hmm. Like you wait. And you think it's gonna be instantaneous when you're that young. You're like, all right, I took the test. Like, where the job's at? You know what I mean?
Wasn't that hard.
And the job, wasn't that hard, right? like it wasn't like the SAT,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the call never came. So a week go by, it turned into months, and like, I'm 17. I'm not 18 yet, but like, in my community, you finish high school, you a man. Like your obligation, like your parents' obligation to take care of you is over. You talk to my mother, she wouldn't say that, right? But I didn't talk to my mother. Like, I knew that it was that transition because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
Unspoken rules. It's community mores and values and norms, right?
You gonna do something.
You gonna do something.
Sitting around here,
right? Because I'm going to contribute at that point. The days of me asking for or receiving are over. So what am I bringing to that? Was my mentality, because I had two brothers who I looked at. They were helping out. Like they were, like, I'm gonna keep this about me. I ain't gonna talk about my brothers, but like they did what they had to do, right? And so like that's that. And I try to explain to some people who just don't have this experience, who do similar work. You're faced with a decision. You know what I mean? And when I was young, because I could play, people would direct me they would shield you from certain things. But when you finish high school, and I was fortunate enough to graduate, you're confronted with that decision as a man. At least you think you man at 17. How you gonna help out? How you gonna contribute? How you gonna take care of yourself? And, I mean, that's a decision I had to wrestle with. And ultimately, I made a decision like most of the young black men in my neighborhood to do what I had to do to be able to take care of myself and contribute, so I'm not a burden on my mother, who took care of her kids and countless other people in that extended community and neighborhood. Right? I mean, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The door was always open in 2609, and I'm not just talking about saying that, the door was always open in 2609. There was always going to be a meal, whether or not she had it. I mean, my mother would have us walking meals across the street to McMillan when there was a homeless person living in it. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. That was the mentality. That was the village mentality that I grew up with. And so, I look back on it and really the prism that I look through today, just like I did when I got this position in 2012, it hasn't changed in 2024. It's the prism of my youth. It's my upbringing in Stronghold in D.C. at the time when I came up. And it's understanding with all that we're experiencing today, what these young folks are going through today. And I'm not making excuses for people who are out here doing what they're doing.
For sure.
Right? What I'm saying is I had to make a decision at some point, as somebody who came up with a mother and a father in the household, like working class, blue collar. I didn't want for anything until I got to that point.
Yeah, and you still lived in a neighborhood though,
yeah,
where people dealt with those issues. You had the stability in your household didn't change the dynamics of some of the things that went on, and you didn't just stay in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
I think people miss that too, right?
Yeah.
Like some of us, whatever level of stability that one may have, I think people underestimate, right, the pull. And the especially the time, I can say just the time we grew up in, but even now, but it's not that, it ain't that black and white,
Hey,
bro.
Tone, like that part, like I don't think people quite understand, like how many people we know who parents took care of them, who still, some of them gravitated because they wanted to, but some of them, it's hard not to have to be in that space.
Super
when we were coming up.
There's no question about it. No question about it.
I would even go as far as to say it was unavoidable.
I say it all the time.
Unavoidable.
I just, for real, literally. And sometimes you just gotta hope that it go your way, because it's just, that go as relates to being, involved with the criminal justice system to, violence or whatever. Like, even you went from, how you used to get to school? How you used to get up Wilson?
It was for public transportation.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Just that alone. Yeah, in that time, just getting on the bus or the train, whatever.
I tell my kids, like my wife and my wife from D.C., she grew up in Congress Heights, and she went to Capitol Hill class of schools, right? So we tell them how we caught the bus or the train, where we were going. I was on public transportation with my brother. My brother, when we went to St. Gabriel's, we walked the shade, but when we went to St. Gabriel's, I was in kindergarten. I was 4 going on 5. Right. So which means my brother was 7 and 9. We were catching the bus. Or if you lose your token or your transfer, you walking.
Yeah,
we were walking home.
Somebody might try to take that transfer
from around Sherman Circle, Grand Circle. You know what I mean? We were walking. Oh, it happened. Like when people like they take your transfer, they take your token, they take your umbrella when it's raining, they take whatever they could. We got stories but I was 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, baptized in the fire.
You know what I mean? And my brother would be upset, like my oldest brother, like we were walking home, like catching multiple buses. So it's just a different day and age. You know what I mean? But like you couldn't really avoid what was happening in the streets.
One of the things I thought about, right, and I don't want to get too ahead of us, but what you just talked about, being able to, legislate through that prism of your childhood. Talk about that family you come from, right? That neighborhood that you come from, that you're very tied to, right?
Yeah, no.
And so when I think about, I'm thinking about a specific situation. I think this was the first reading of Secure DC.
Yeah.
And it was just a moment that I saw you have where I could see that all of that we just talked about was like weighing on you.
Yeah. We spoke about that on here.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the emotion in that. And I was like, man, as much as I know that make you a superhero on that dais, I could just see the heaviness, because I felt like if you, Trayon, especially in them, like that the level of I think your colleagues, and this is not discounting anything about any of them. What I'm getting at though is that when it comes to certain issues, there's a different level of accountability for you.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
You got to go back to North Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's it right there.
You got to look them people in their eyes.
Took the words out of my mouth. I'm blessed, man, in that I have an anchor in Stronghold. Like, it doesn't matter what level of success or perceived success I achieve professionally, I'm going back to Stronghold.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally am going back because I live there, right? But I believe deeply that I'm only in this position because I come from there, right? Like, you hear people say it all the time that you stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm living my ancestors' wildest dreams, like literally, right? I mean, think about it. People say all the time, like when you celebrate turning 18 years old in the way that I did growing up in my neighborhood, literally celebrate the achievement of reaching your 18th birthday, and then you go on at some point to survive when so many people didn't, right? And then to actually graduate from college. I'm the first male in my family to graduate from college, right? Let alone to go to law school, pass the bar, clerk for a judge in Prince George's County, be an assistant state's attorney, be a civil rights attorney at DOJ, travel the country, seeing places I never would have dreamed of going, Silver City, New Mexico, Paducah, Kentucky, Inglewood, California, like East Haven, Connecticut, not New Haven, Connecticut, everybody. Right. East Haven, Connecticut.
Right.
Like, it is because I come from the family that I come from, right? That instilled in me at a very early age what I'm capable of achieving against the odds. Because the odds, to be clear, were stacked against us. You know what I mean? Right. All the data, all the research.
Understatement. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, we were fighting to get to be 18 years old at a time when hundreds of young black men and women, primarily men, were dying in the streets or going off to prison. Right? Yeah. I know. I mean, who am I talking to? Right? Like,
facts, bro.
Right? Like,
facts.
You remember '89 for different reasons. I remember because, this time, all those years ago when my godfather was killed, right? That first experience it in a way that was close and personal and like it was family, where you lost somebody to gun violence, and I was 13, not even 14 yet. Like, it changes something in you when the strongest man in my life was my father, and he didn't know I was there, but you hear your father crying, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what does that do to that 13-year-old kid? You know what I mean? Like I remember that. I remember what it meant to him to lose his brother to gun violence. You know what I mean? And then have it be a police officer to do it, of all people, also changes something in you at that time frame where you go from having the coaches at the Boys and Girls Club who you looked up to as mentors to starting to have that adversarial relationship with law enforcement when they started descending, not just MPD, but like, park police,
And
service.
just for the listeners, because those coaches you speaking about were also police officers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, my best friend's older brother was a police officer. Dedicated.
Yeah.
Looked up to him. I remember one time he got a call, he was off. And like, you got a call, I guess, but something was going on. And the dude did some robberies and was running down Oak Apple Street. Man, he ran out the house.
Right.
And gave chase.
Yeah.
And caught him.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were proud.
Yeah.
I mean, it's looking at it now, it's kind of like,
Right.
but like, so that relationship with law enforcement started to shift around that time in the 80s, during the crack epidemic, when they started descending on neighborhoods. And frankly, it didn't matter what you were doing. You, like so many people would be tossed on the curb.
Yeah, sure enough. That's the
take
part.
your Timbs off.
And that's what I'm saying. You've been through that.
Yeah.
Right? So when we thought, that's right. That's the thing.
I mean, I've been arrested in my own neighborhood, man.
We've been through that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
you know what that looked like.
Yes, I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And so when you talk about Secure DC, right? Any like sort of public safety bill, but particularly those ones where like Secure DC, it's law enforcement heavy. It is. When I think about, the issues we face with crime and violence, I think about two things. Sure, I think about the accountability. I think about the consequence. I think about the fact that if you go carry a gun, take somebody's life, that the consequences associated with that, and you should receive those consequences.
Indeed.
But the other side of that is the opportunity side. And for me, I don't think about one without the other.
Yeah.
I think about the consequences and accountability, but I also think about the opportunity, because were it not for the opportunity to tie it back to, turning 17 and having to make that decision and making what I know now is a wrong decision, but at the time, it was the only option available to that young 17-year-old kid who couldn't get the job, wanted the job. I mean, I took, before I, made some bad decisions, I worked at the zoo serving ice cream because it was the only thing, and it was a temporary job, but it was the only thing I could get.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I could get. You know what I mean? And so it changed for me coming out of Wilson after about a year and some months of being out there with my homies, right? It changed for me when I finally got that call. Took the civil service test. Man, that call didn't come for like about 18 months. You know what I mean? What do you do in between?
Come on, man.
Right?
Do you survive in between?
Yeah.
You trying to survive, right? You and you losing people along the way.
Yeah,
You know
we're
what I
trying to do
mean?
the same thing.
Man, like stories for days, man. So that call came in the form of that letter from the government, and it just happened because I would have took any letter with any agency, but it happened to be the United States Postal Service for me.
So let me ask you this question. You 18,
Yeah.
18, 19.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I'm 18 going on 19.
And we talking about that same DC, right? That same DC where it's on fire everywhere.
Yeah.
Walk us through your money. It's a job,
Yeah.
but now you got to carry this mail.
Yeah.
What was your route and how did you feel?
So
you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna tell you like this. How can I put this? You know, I was faced with another decision because at that point when the letter came, I was good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was good. My issues that I had financially weren't a problem for me at the time.
Right.
What was a problem was a cat and mouse game that was going on in the neighborhood where the risk was so high and the reward was precarious.
Yeah.
In other words, I was okay financially, but I was running the risk. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And some things happened that when the letter came, it came at the right time in my life where I was like, you know what? That's a sign. That's a sign, right? And so I remember reading the letter and like, you know, showing it to my brothers and like, and people were encouraging me,
Take that joint.
take that job, man. Because that's what, when I wasn't the only one that took civil service test. There's a crew of us went down and took the civil service test. I was the only one that got the letter. Even though it was all those months later, I was the only one that got the letter, and it literally changed my life. It changed my life, man, and it put me on this path to be able to sit before y'all today as a council member, right? Like, so you get that letter, you make that choice, you take that job, and I worked it, man. I worked it. I mean, I put in a lot of time. I was young, 19 years old by the time I started. And so there wasn't overtime. Oh, I was looking for it. I wanted it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted it, and I was putting in work. And at the time when I was getting that job, I still had a friend of mine who grew up with me, one of those families, right? You know, who would come home every summer. He went to college. He was one of the, you know, his family, all of them went to college. And our families go back generations.
Right.
Shout out to the Fairfaxes and the Butlers and all the folks in it. But like this friend in particular, who ultimately became and is a mentor, was closer to my brother's age. In fact, he was in between my brother's ages, but they hung out. I ain't really I hung out with his younger siblings. But he would come home, and I don't know why, but he would, and maybe he was saying it to a whole lot of other people, but he would tell me, and like you know you can go to college, man. Like you know, you still hoop. I can make some calls and like we can get you in. And I just didn't have faith that there was any value in that at the time. But even when I got the job and my financial circumstances changed when I got the post office job, because I was making good money, I had benefits, you know what I mean? Like, so I didn't want for anything. I was providing, I was helping out around the house, but he would stay on my case. You can do this, you can go to college, you can, and I would take those words with a grain of salt. I met a girl who at time was like finishing up high school. She knew she wanted to go to college.
Yeah, that's how I got there. That's how
Like, I mean, she knew she wanted to go to college. Like it was never a minute where she didn't talk about going to college.
Yeah.
And so having my mom stay on my case, because she always stayed on our case. You can like you, and having, shout out to Roger Fairfax, that's what I'm talking about, Dean Fairfax, like having him say, look, I did it, you can do it. Although, like, you went to Harvard, bro. Like, you say that, you say I can do it, but like, like you different, right? That's how, you know how some people in your neighborhood, but, and then when I met her, and I was carrying mail, which was fine, like she ended up, but it was like she went to college, and I'm like, man, I like her, like. So it was really the confluence of events that had me say, you know, okay, I'm in a good situation. I was still working in the post office, had no desire to go to college, but I saw possibilities. Roger been saying this for a while, but now she in college, so maybe I can do this. But then like in the spring of 1998, man, everything just hit the proverbial fan for me. In a way that like the loss and trauma that I experienced leading up to the spring of 1998, like I had lost friends along the way. People in the neighborhood, people outside the neighborhood you knew in other neighborhoods. And I've been carrying mail for about almost, not quite, but almost 4 years at that point. But I lost a couple of homies in Stronghold within a matter of a few months. Like basically within a matter of, yards from each other at different times.
Right.
And it just hit differently.
Yeah.
Both of them in Stronghold too. You know what I mean? Like it hit differently for me because those were like I'm like the person who keeps all the catalogs, all the pictures and stuff growing up like in Stronghold. Like I would take pictures, but also I would go buy the pictures. I go to Mrs. G and I buy all 5 pictures. So I still got a lot of that stuff. And I look back at some of those photos and I don't post a lot of that aspect of my life.
You need to throw them Jones up though.
I probably should.
Yeah.
But I think, part of it is it brings back memories, some of which are uncomfortable. But it also, like, you post those pictures, some people just won't understand.
Get it?
You know what I mean?
I found myself having to really be meticulous with the caption.
Yeah.
To get those who don't
Yeah,
understand.
ain't that a shame though? You do feel like you gotta over-explain because you know.
Yeah, but I was looking like DC Decades. They post a lot of, but they talking about like Fila sweatsuits the other day.
Right.
Man, I got a joint, man.
Me feel like
man, I got purple joint.
I'm looking for one
with the little green joints going down there, man.
Yeah.
I had like the little phase ones with the Fila headband.
Yeah.
I was looking at you today, the outfit you wear, man. Like, I mean, how many cats didn't have like? You remember Madness had the real men wear black joints back in the day with the rhinestones,
and
the headbands was out. You know what I mean? Like I mean, we got I got pictures for days.
You
but
was
like
getting that post office money too, so I know you was buying
it.
I was at home. I know
man,
you was doing
when the touchdown was out, like every Wednesday, like it was prep. Like I was prepping. Like it was a spot that we would meet up in, and I would go and we had. I mean, man, I don't. You had the St. Ives, you know what I mean. You have the gin. You have, and I don't even. I mean, like, I'm talking about like you buy the biggest bottles or whatever, and like and then we would meet. Yeah, and it was
y'all
it's too. How we live.
I was
man.
drinking Cisco and everything.
Cisco.
No, you know what's funny? Because that's a look. Cause you like what 4 years older than us?
Yeah, I'm probably like I might be 4 or 5 years old. I'm 75.
Yeah, you 70. Okay, so you're 5 years older than.
Yeah.
But I like a lot of my big homies your age. You know what I'm saying? Because I used to be like, it's even certain things spots they was going to. I couldn't go. I was still a little too young. You know what I'm saying? I remember
Ibex,
that.
Touchdown. Man. Not to mention the Go-Go's that we went to.
Right.
I mean, all the spots that we went to. But like, I think, I would have to over-explain some of that stuff. I might start posting some of it, though. I might start posting
for the culture.
So I mean, I had a joint where I had like the cornrows, you know what I mean?
They got to see that, man.
I had the braids long, man.
Here's the thing, right? And I didn't want to fast forward, but I have to. I've been wanting to jump in a couple of times with this question, right? You walk into the Wilson building as an elected official for the first time, right? Given all you just said over the last several moments, right? Was there ever a point inside where you felt like you had to leave some of that behind when you walk into 1350 Pennsylvania Avenue? Or was it hard to carry?
I'll say this. To Tony's point earlier about Secure DC and like that experience I had, I find, man, and like, growing up, we're not taught to emote. We're taught the opposite.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? Real men don't cry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what I found, I talked to my wife about that. Like, I think fatherhood has changed me, and especially probably being like a girl dad. But like, no, I don't feel like I've ever had to leave it behind. In fact, I feel like I'm duty bound to raise it up. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, at first, well, part of it, like when I did first, everything was suit and tie, everything was crisp, everything was like, you know, what's the role, what's expected of me?
Because let me paint the picture real quick a little more for people that's watching. You got into office in 2012.
Yeah.
Right? At that particular time, there's a lot of layers to this, right?
Yeah.
There were black men from DC that were either colleagues of yours or formerly in that position.
Yes.
Black DC native men who, however the chips may fall, they found themselves in trouble.
Yes.
And you walked in the door as the next generation, and I think people were expecting either one, you to do the same thing, or two, you to really like go totally opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like it was yesterday, my swearing in, because I won a special election, it wasn't with everybody else. Right? I was by myself.
Oh wow.
And they did it in the chambers. And it had been celebratory leading up to that, right? I mean, May 15th happened. It was great. It was a moment then when I was like, man, it's real now. Like, you know, you ever talk to some of the people who were there that night, you know what I mean? I wasn't celebrating like everybody else. Because my mind wasn't in celebration mode. It was almost like warrior mode. It wasn't the fact, you know, yeah, I had won, but it was like the real work was about to start, right? Like the real work of going down there and being that image for so many people to have to deliver, right? Because so many people depend on people in my position to fight for them. And I wanted to fight, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to fight, but it hit you. And then when I got sworn in, you know, a couple of weeks later on May 30th, it really hit me being up there and looking out to that audience and seeing all those Stronghold people. You know what I mean? Like seeing my uncles, seeing, you know, have my father up there, my mother, you know what I mean? Like it was a powerful moment for me. And it was a moment where, you know, sometimes it makes you question a little bit why you are the one, right? Like, there's so many people who are talented in our neighborhoods, right? Like, come on, man. If we were to list all the people who could have done amazing things in life, were they not to get caught and not get locked up, were they not to lose their life, right? I mean, the list is long. Yeah. But I was the one who was able to navigate, get to this position, right? And so sometimes I think about that, and you know, and it's important for me to center that in the work that I do. And so, you know, when I think about security or policies that I view and understand because of my experience, the negative impacts ultimately that will happen to people in communities. And to be clear, it's not that I think anybody is intending to do harm to black communities when they do some of these things. Mm-hmm. But maybe if you've never been chased by the police, or you never stood on a block, you never had to make the decision about whether to defend yourself.
Correct.
Right?
No.
If you never visited Lorton or any number of the Bureau prison facilities, I mean, I did that. I didn't just do it as a lawyer, which I was privileged to be able to do, but I did it because I had family. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. So that to me, it's just different. My perspective is different than some people who are down there, right? So I'm in this budget process that we're going through now, given all the tough choices that, you know, have to be made about where spending happens and what you got to cut back, I'm going to be fighting for sports.
Yeah.
Because for some of these young folks, it's the thing that will give them some semblance of hope.
Yeah, man.
in an otherwise hopeless situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that, and I think about too, like, you describing like a lot of times. First of all, like you as a council member, right, in Washington D.C., right? That's just it's 13 people, right? So that's rare air, just in general, right? But particularly, coming from here and then coming from a community like Stronghold, and again the inspiration of that, but it's a gravity to that as well, right? And so the question that I have around that right now, and you've been on the council too now, what, 12 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, which is, that's pretty remarkable in itself. Has it gotten easier? Because you described, that swearing in, right? So 12 years, it hasn't gotten easier.
2022 was not an easy year, I'll tell you that. Like, and y'all were there and helped me get through it. But like 2022,
yeah,
running for a different office, trying to continue to serve in your own city, to be knocked off a ballot and told by a court and judges that I was ineligible. Again, man, like I said, like I'm the first male in my family to graduate from college. I'm the lawyer. Like, it's not a lot of lawyers in Stronghold, right?
Right.
And then have people question whether I had done my due diligence or had done my homework. I won't get into the weeds of all that, but you got to know that I did everything.
But I'm gonna get into the weeds just real quick. I don't want to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is the way, because in things that and collaborating, working with you and whatever, you get into the weeds. You gonna go in the weeds even if somebody may think you don't need to go in the weeds. That's what
wired to be in the weeds.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right?
That's all I wanted. That's what you do.
Weeds.
You live in the weeds. Yeah, for sure.
I told this story on here a few weeks ago, during the pandemic, when we had social distancing. Instead of meeting in an office or on Zoom, he would have John and I come to his back porch, and we would meet, and we'd be sitting about as far away as we are right now, right, for the social distancing component. And we were talking, and you brought up something that I've held close since you said it. You said, when I hire people, I want three things. They got to write well, read well, and anticipate well, right? And so to that point about the weeds, but now, okay, you win the election, you're a council member, you've been in that place for 12 years. To that point around hiring people, bringing people in, having those three elements, I don't know that people think that far. They want to get elected, but you got to hire a staff of like 10 to 12 people.
And I believe deeply, sure. If my mother were here, she'd tell you I'm smart, right? And I believe I've got some capability, right? I work hard, I study hard, and try to educate myself. But man, honestly, with this work, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. You know what I mean? And I've surrounded myself with some really talented, hardworking, caring public servants. And I think sometimes there's a perception about the work and the job as if, I make a solid, salary for doing this work, but most of the people who work for me don't make as much as I make. And in some cases, they made more before they took the job with me, right? Because, government doesn't always pay, commensurate with what your experience is or your value in the private sector. And I don't think people always understand that. But I've been privileged to be able to work with a really talented group of folks. And, they write well, they read well, and they anticipate. You got to be able to look around corners in this work. It ain't just what's staring you in the face. That's the easy stuff. It's what's lurking, right? And I ain't learned that in the classroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So, but no, I mean, like, it doesn't get easier in the sense that there are always competing interests in this work. And even if you have people with similar backgrounds, you may have dissimilar interests, right, in a policy or a program or a way to fund something. And I think this budget, frankly, is going to be the toughest one yet for me. Because, in a lot of the prior budgets that I experienced on the council, in terms of like how much money the city has, we had surpluses.
Yeah.
We had extra money, right, to do things with, to fund programs, right? Not this year.
Yeah.
Not this year. Things have been on the top chopping block and will be on the chopping block. So, when I think about the things that I'm trying to do to provide for the least among us, particularly those black folks who are in the city on the margins, then, I'm prioritizing those things. And I'm also prioritizing, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, those entrepreneurs who we know, if they continue to do well in their business, hiring more people, growing their business, then they're likely to be hiring the people from the communities that need those jobs. Then I think about the city and our future economic growth in that way, right? Like, I mean, DC used to be a place of opportunity for black folks, right? I still live in Stronghold, grew up there. My dad grew up there in the same house. My grandparents bought the house in 1952, right? And they bought that house like 4 years after the Supreme Court said that, racially restrictive covenants were unconstitutional and unenforceable. 4 years later, my grandparents bought a house in a white neighborhood that literally had a racially restrictive covenant on it.
Yeah.
And they flipped it to opportunity, and people wanted to be here. People look like us. Generations before us wanted to be here because it was the place to be for black folks, to get that opportunity, whether it was government or somewhere else. And I feel like we've gotten to a point where people aren't looking at DC the same way. It's not just not chocolate, right? Yeah, that's part of it, right? But like, if you are a 20-something, 30-something-year-old black person that doesn't live here and didn't grow up here, why do you want to be here today? We gotta tell them that. That's the story. Like, we gotta make sure people understand that. And if you were somebody who grew up here, and in 2024 you're fighting to try to stay here because it's so expensive, then what am I doing to fight for you? It's the way I look at some of this stuff.
Yeah, like for real, like where, I think one of the things we think about a lot about how, you talk about your parents, and your grandparents, maybe, I don't know what they did for a living, but I'm just saying, like the government, right? It was local government or the federal government.
Yeah.
That's our industry. This is a government town, right? And I think about like where is that civil service exam today? Yeah. Like, what's that version? I know all the girls I knew growing up, you know what I'm saying, like when we was high school age, you know what I'm saying, who had that half a day schedule. Yeah. You know what I mean? Those jobs fortified the black middle class, but it was entry points into it. Right. You understand what I'm saying? I think, I don't know if those entry points exist so much anymore. And, people would do whatever it takes to, whatever we would say the criteria would be. Right. But having those entry points, just telling somebody to go and apply USA Jobs or go to DC.gov, I think we got to be much more intentional about, creating them pathways into, these entities. And again, that could go beyond government. But I'm just using that as an example. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because that really is what, gave black people back in them days, man, that hope and why you wanted to come.
And you're right, it does have to go beyond government. But for so many generations of black people, it was government.
It was.
You know what I mean?
And you mentioned something earlier too, right? You mentioned something earlier. Where also, you know, your aunt or your uncle or your mother or your father can say, "Hey man, come on." You know, and pull you in. I'm not saying the nepotism at all, whatever you call it. I'm not saying that but I mean, that's what did it. And so people be asking, like, what's different today? This is what I'm getting to. But I'm like, people forget that it ain't that way. That really is what it was. And some people that even benefited from that, or families benefited from it, they kind of forgot that.
I think they have forgotten that. And that culture and that aspect has changed. And some of it, you know, it needed to change. You can't have a government that's too bloated on the personnel side if you're not growing the economy and generating the revenue. Not to get too wonky, but like,
that's nah.
You know, you end up like you did in the mid-90s.
That's right.
Where crime is high, opportunity is low. I mean, remember, for me, I couldn't get a job. I wanted a job when I graduated. It wasn't jobs, you know, right? Like, and so one of the things I do as chair of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, I'm not simply looking at government to create those opportunities. I'm looking at the private sector, business opportunities, access to capital. Well, the government was the hook for so many people. Why? Because that's where black folks had the opportunities, right? Because if you want to start a business, you got to have access to capital. And for black folks, it's harder said than done, right? Because we don't have the traditional relationships with banking institutions.
Correct.
And we don't always have the family and friends plan where you can go get money from somebody to help you start that business, like so many other people can, particularly majority races, white folks in the country can. We were excluded from opportunities, right? Housing, we were excluded from opportunity. You think about one of the primary ways that people generate wealth in this country, it is through property ownership, residential and commercial, right? I just talked about my grandparents getting a house. It's still in the family. You know what I mean? And it's worth more today than it was when they bought it, right? So there's equity there. There's wealth for me and my kids. But what about on the business side of things? That's why I wrote the law to create the Commercial Property Acquisition Fund, the Access to Capital Fund. I do things thinking about ways to address the racial wealth gap in the District of Columbia. Because although it was Chocolate City and, you know, we had all these high numbers of black folks, the wealth gap is still as wide as it's ever been.
One of the widest in America.
Exactly, right?
And then
81 times. White median wealth, household wealth in the nation's capital is 81 times black median household wealth. And it's my job to do something about it. And so there are programs that you all know people have benefited from where they have had successful businesses, but for one reason or another, they couldn't acquire the real estate where they operate those businesses. Okay, all right, what do you do about that, Kenyan, the legislator? You create a fund, right, that gives people the opportunity to apply to get capital, not to keep renting, but to actually buy the commercial real estate, right? And you put people on a pathway to get those assets, to build that wealth that has the potential to be generational. Keep running your business, grow your business, but guess what? You also got, you know, that asset there that could be passed on, just like your business can. So thinking about those wealth building opportunities, I think it is the role of government to be a part of the solution for people who historically have been denied those opportunities, in the same way that generations before us, government was saying, you know what, go build that development community white developer and we'll give you money from the federal government. Oh, but you got to have racial restricted covenant. You can't have black people living there. And if you do, you won't get the loan to finance the development.
That happened.
Oh, absolutely.
Like people, you know what I mean? Not long ago. Like
no.
That happened.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So you know, there is the work of, you know, repairing the harm that's been done. There's the work of expanding opportunity. There's the work of providing basic services, but doing it through the lens of equity. I mean, you know, look, we need law enforcement in the District of Columbia.
No question.
And I'm willing to have a debate with anybody who thinks that we don't. But what else do we need when it comes to community safety, right? We need economic opportunity and security. We need the school to be a good school for the kid to walk through, right? We need the activities before and after to keep this kid in structure, right? We need the kid's parent to have a good paying job so they can take care of themselves and their family. And perhaps they need, some sort of support to be able to do those things. And we should be able to provide that too so people don't slip through the cracks. But what I'm looking at are the opportunities to help lift people out of poverty.
Yeah. Can you talk about a little deeper too about the what was the name of the equity bill?
Which one? The
that's what
Racial
I'm talking
Equity
about.
Achieved Results Act, the Reach Act,
So
or
the Reach Act? That's the
Yeah.
one I was talking about. I was talking about Reach. But what's the other one?
the Tenure Act, the Reach Act, and then there's a reparations bill that I have that has not been passed yet,
Oh, we
and
need
then
to
there's
Baby
commercial
bonds.
commercial
Baby
property-
bonds, of
baby
course.
bonds, Child Wealth Building
That's
Act,
the one.
Yeah.
Okay. So
which got cut in this budget by 70%.
Dang.
70%. So what we had funded 2 years for multiple years now, but we had to go and it got cut fully to fund it last year in the mayor's proposed budget, and we had to find $54 million to put back in the budget. This year, it did not get fully cut, but it got cut by 70%. So the program was one in which a kid would get up to $1,000 a year who's born in poverty, up to 300% of the federal poverty level, right? Account automatic, right? It gets established. You get that money going in there every year. Compound interest does its thing. And then when you turn 18, you have a fund with, 20, 25, maybe more, $1,000 waiting for you.
Yeah.
It's not making you rich. But I don't think it's the role of government to make people rich necessarily. But it provides perhaps a lifeline, an opportunity.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
25
for me,
grand, yeah.
like if I had that when I graduated and couldn't get that job,
We just talked about it. Right. That's right.
life changing,
That's right.
right? And so that got cut, not completely, but it's no longer 300% for people eligible up to 300% of federal poverty level. It's only for babies born into poverty up to 100% of federal poverty level. So a third of the eligible people that otherwise would have been eligible. So you cut 2/3 of the people out, you decrease the amount of people who are going to get that opportunity. And it's no longer up to $1,000 a year. It's up to $500 a
So
year.
it's less people and less money.
Less people and less money,
Let's go real quick.
which means less opportunity.
So
Where I see it.
let's go here real quick. All right. So here you are, one of 13 people on the council. You also work with the mayor with respect to the budget every year. We talked earlier about you being a competitor, playing sports, right? You go into these hearings, these committee meetings, you're working with 13 other people, right? There's literally, they call it horse trading, right? To some degree, right? We figure this out, we pull money here, we try to make it work. When you're in that position, right, as the official that's been elected, it's a lot different than when you're running for office.
Yes.
And there are people that will walk around, knock on doors, and say, "I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna change everything," right?
Yeah.
And you can't do that alone. Walk us through the mindset that you have in terms of prioritizing things, and how do you work with other members of the council, and how do you get those victories?
That's a very important question. I mean, there is no magic wand. There's a lot of things you can want to do and campaign on, but then reality will hit you in the face in a way that you've never experienced if you don't understand, how to work within an institution that you have, 12 other colleagues, and you have the mayor, right? And so, my mindset has always been to think about the things that people need, to attempt to prioritize those things, because as much as I would like to do everything, our budget as a city is finite in terms of the amount of resources is available any given year in the financial plan. Not to get too wonky, but we have to budget for not just the year we're in, but the four-year financial plan, which in many ways is unique to DC. because of the control board era in the mid-'90s when we almost went bankrupt.
True.
But my mentality is to work with my colleagues to understand what their priorities are, to convey to them what my priorities are, and then try to work in a way that is collegial, to a point where we can achieve and address those things that people care about, right? There are other things that are important in this budget. For example, pay equity fund is important. You know, it got cut. You know, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of all the things that I would like to be able to do and other colleagues would like to be able to do. The reality is we have to figure out how to get there, because it's going to take hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to restore all the things that were cut in the mayor's proposed budget. Mm-hmm. And I'm not certain that we're going to be able to do that. Why? Because, you know, you wind up having to think about cuts to programs that exist, which is one of the hardest things to do in government. You give somebody something, taking it back, it's not popular.
Yeah.
But that's one way, cuts, to create the revenues you need to fund those things, or you raise revenues.
Raise taxes.
Raise taxes.
Started off talking about cutting those
talking
checks.
about them people.
Yeah. And my hope is that we don't have to. I mean, the mayor raised taxes in her budget, her proposed budget, sales taxes and other things. And some people look at it and say that's regressive. You know what I mean? Because you raise taxes, it's not just people who can afford to pay the additional sales tax who end up having to pay.
The part. People already getting squeezed.
Everybody
Yeah.
is going to have to pay,
People
right?
also already dealing with inflation in certain ways and different that. So
who are already struggling to make the ends meet.
Right? And the perception in this city that certain levels of salary mean you're rich.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, we can have that debate about whether that's accurate, because you know there's a high cost of living here. But we also don't want to run people out of the city who have the means to pay the additional taxes, who have the means to, you know, buy and own a home, because they ask a fundamental question. If you, government, are going to raise my taxes, whether it's sales tax, whether it's income tax, whether it's property tax, whatever the revenue raiser is, then what am I getting in return?
Yeah.
What are you giving me in return?
And we are up against that. If a person also could very easily, right, they can literally go, in some cases, right, 20 feet and be in a state where the property taxes or sales tax or whatever the case may be lower, and still benefit from the things that the city, presents, right? You understand what I'm saying?
You can go from East Beach to Silver Spring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? Or from Southwest to Arlington, whatever, you know what I mean?
In some cases, you may have a school in that community that is public, that your kids can walk to.
Yep.
Right? You may have less crime in that community, right? Like so people are weighing the cost benefit all the time. And I know y'all have friends and family who have had to make that personal decision themselves, because I certainly do. And my fight is for those people to stay, but to also convey what they get in return for increasing their taxes, right? Like, you should know what that looks like, what it feels like. You know what I mean? Like you should know what it means for your kids' education. You should know what it means for your community's safety. You should know, what it means for your opportunity to get a meaningful job in your city, to be able to provide for yourself and your family. Like, what are you getting in return? What do the opportunities look like for you in your city? If we're calling on you to pay your fair share, but like a more, than you have been paying.
And I think about, like, I'm just having a moment because I'm thinking about, right? I think I've grown in my ability to look past you being from 7th Street, you being from Stronghold, me being from Hanover, and like how much that ties us, right? And as I talk to other people that, you know, may have moved here, and now they started their family, and how they don't have that same anchor for them though, and they looking at it like, hey, Tone, man, I'm not trying to be scared to walk this way. I'm not trying to have to pay for private school because I don't want my kid to go to whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm gonna move. You know, like I just said, and I'm like, I used to be like, man, y'all go ahead, cause but now it's like, wow, like, yeah, okay, I see the perspective in that, like how that would probably weigh on folks like you to think about, well, how do we keep that person from saying, we need
those people, right? We need them, right? Because
man,
you know, not to sound crude, but like we're literally depending on them to pay their taxes in order to do the other things. All those social safety net programs, well, the money's not growing on trees. You know, you grow up and your parents say, money don't grow on trees. The money's not growing on trees. We are generating that revenue from what they're paying into the system.
And I don't think, and I'm not saying we get caught up in the comments and all that, but I don't think, right, me and Si have talked about civics before and the need for people to understand like how things work. Like what you just said, right? I don't think people understand what you just said. If people are here to pay commercial tax, to spend money downtown or anywhere in the city, to pay sales tax, to pay property tax, then you can't have pathways of project empowerment or DHS increase in the food. Like people don't understand how the two things.
If they're not paying those taxes and all the fees, parking tickets, and all that,
people think the government just you know. That's,
listen. We've been there before. Remember, remember the 90s?
But they wasn't. We do.
We've been there before.
When we had 4 times the need and a fourth of the money.
Yes, sir.
I remember one time, right, when I first became an ANC, we did a community cleanup at the park on 4th Franklin and Lincoln Road, right? And I think C. Sosa had sent some people who were assigned hours.
Right. Like
so some young guys that were helping us clean up out there, and we were talking. They were, you know, really going off about government and like not enough money for programs. And I asked them, it was 2 of them. I said, let's say the 2 of y'all booked a flight to go to Miami. Y'all booked a 2-room suite, right? Airfare paid for, hotel paid for. Y'all going to have it up, have a good time, right? Say your man come home from jail just out of nowhere, right? And he ain't got no money, he just getting out. Y'all buy him a ticket. Y'all already had y'all trip planned without him, but y'all buy him a ticket too. Y'all get to the 2-bedroom suite, right? Who takes the rooms? They're like, what you mean? I was like, who takes the rooms? It's 2 bedrooms, it's 3 guys. Who takes the rooms? They like, we taking the rooms. He gonna get a little bed, but we gonna. I said, well, that's kind of how government works. Like the people who pay the most taxes, they do command the things that, you know, what they say to the victor go to spoils. Right? And we had this conversation in the middle of a park, 2 guys who had never understood civics to that degree, and I gave them an example they could understand, but people just don't. They don't.
And that's a great point because, you know, my fight is for the least among us, the people who can't afford to get access to those things, but I also recognize where you get the resources to provide to them.
Sure.
Right? Like y'all paying those taxes. Right, y'all paying those taxes faithfully on time. Right,
but that's why to the day I die, is why it's important when people be talking about like acting as if we talking about giving people anything. We have to give people the opportunity so that they can then become a part of the people that's contributing to that room.
Right.
And not just
which is key, know, Tone, because I think about programs and how we define success and measure performance. One thing government's not good at is evaluating itself. We're not gonna get into that right now. Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah, that's another joke. Hey.
Because we create programs a lot.
Sure.
How many programs do we cut and say, you know what, it's not working the way we thought, right? It's not really giving us the return on the investment. We're not good at that. But we will raise revenues to do another program. And I don't think this is a budget where you're doing a whole lot of new programs. And I think we have to have that sort of evaluation at some point about what's working, what's not working, right? Because some programs may need to be cut. Let's just talk about that. Like some programs may need to be cut. Won't get into which or whatever, because I don't completely know right now, but I think it's worth the effort to figure out what works, what doesn't. So that you're not always looking back to the people and saying, we need more from you. Because some people have the option to leave. Now, I think in this country sometimes if for people who are minorities or less resourced, they don't have as many options as others, right? You might have a city or something you can go, you can come to get a job, you can survive and live. But then there are others who
that's the thing.
Any city USA, right?
Yeah.
Plant the flag.
Yeah, you can go wherever.
And start anew.
100%.
So I think it's important to understand that. You don't gotta like it, but it's simple math to a certain extent in terms of how you're able to, as a government, provide goods and services, resources, basic in some cases, that any government should provide. It takes revenue to be able to do that, and you need people to want to be here. Need people to start businesses, right? You need your economy chugging along successfully, and we have a challenge with our downtown right now, with the federal government, with the remote work policies that I know everybody loves, where they're not spending as much time in the District of Columbia during the day. Our population used to swell to over 1 million during the day, with office workers, private sector, public sector, and we're not seeing that same swelling of the daytime population. Yeah, sure. It's still traffic out there, though. I don't know if y'all been downtown. It's still traffic out there.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Look like somebody's down there.
Somebody's down there, but it is not the people in
closed
office buildings.
spots too, though.
A lot of closed
We
spots.
left Emancipation Day the other day, and I tried to go to Pie Pizzeria. I didn't realize that drink was closed.
I got out the car down the CVS is right there on 8th and what's that, 8th and E?
Yeah.
Right there by C. Sosa. I got out the car to go in CVS. Yeah. We had a meal. I was running and get her some water. I said, man, this joint closed.
So when you think about the investments we have to make in the downtown, it is important because it had for years been the catalyst that helped to turn things around financially for the District of Columbia.
But this is the question I would ask you. Though. Yeah. And I get, yes, but if people aren't, it's like the same with the sports thing. I look at it like that too. Mm-hmm. I think we also got to start to strategize. We can almost accept that. Okay, even if federal government go back to say I don't know 4 days a week or 3 days a week in the office for everybody, whatever, right? Yeah, you gonna get more people come, but it still ain't gonna probably ever look like what it looked like pre-COVID. Yeah. And what are some of the workarounds or the strategies? Rather people come back downtown in the way that they were before. Yeah. And I know I've seen some things about maybe more residential down there and this and that. But how do you view this group of Washingtonians, the black natives that are continually in poverty, that are like, we represent, when you start talking about the ills of our city, in the 90th percentile, man. Yeah. Overdoses, incarceration, victims, perpetrators, housing insecure, food insecure, all of that. But I think about that group. What can we do to get that group on board, and how do we paint a picture to everybody else of how much that would help as it relates to some of this other stuff that we dealing with?
Yeah, I think
economically,
I approach it in two ways. The first way it's on a basic human level, where it is the role of government to keep people safe. And I'm not just talking about violence. Mm-hmm. That's part of it, clearly. But the levels of addiction that exist, you think about the opioid crisis in our city, how many people have we lost?
Yeah, bro.
Right?
Yeah, bro.
I mean, you think about the challenges with mental and behavioral health right now in our city. I mean, it was bad before the pandemic, but the pandemic took a devastating toll on communities across the district, but in minorities, black and brown, black people in particular, though.
Yeah, bro.
Like, I mean, some people survived it, and it manifests itself, the trauma, it manifests itself in the addiction, in the challenges with mental and behavioral health. But some people didn't even survive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many homies we have? Right? I mean, Cardo, man. Right? I mean, my best friend from the post office I met on the first day, from here, grew up.
Yeah.
Over off M Street. Graduated from Easton. Kids. Lost them. You know what I mean? To the pandemic. Right? And so you think about the impact that it's had on the black community, and I look at it at a very basic human level. We got to do more to help them. Right? Like, there's resources that we have to devote to addressing that. The other part of it on the economic side is, what experience do people have in the District of Columbia? Right? Like if you're here, what's going to keep you here? And if you're not here, but you're looking for a place to be, what's going to attract you? Mm-hmm. And I think we have to address the challenges economically, because if we don't, we won't be able to do what we need to for those folks who we see they're living amongst us. You know what I mean? In a way that I've never seen in this city.
Yeah.
Never seen in this city. Right? I mean, so it's manifested itself with the addiction, behavioral mental health, and the violence, these young folks. Like, I mean, the what's happening is a crisis of epic proportions where the response has to be heightened to meet this moment.
Yeah. A lot of work can be done. A lot of work has been done, right? And I do want to take this personal privilege on record to say that I'm extremely happy for the work you've done over the last 12 plus years. Not just as a person who supported you, not as a person who's worked in your office before, but just watching in all those capacities the work you've done.
I appreciate it.
It's been like relentless.
I would tell you, man, we need more people to want to do this work. And we obviously want, really smart, dedicated DC natives or new, comers to work in government positions, but I'm specifically talking about people to run for public office.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Right? Because
ain't no Tony.
I mean, I'm just saying, like
yeah, I'm talking.
I mean, like, we need it. Like, I'm here for a reason. I didn't dream of doing this.
Yeah.
Didn't. Right? Whenever I see people, it's funny. Like, I'll see people who say, "I always knew you were." Nah, you didn't.
Right.
Yeah. Nah, you didn't. I didn't.
Yeah, like how? How you?
You know what I mean? Like I didn't. I mean, to achieve professionally what I've achieved is a blessing, but it was not something that was obvious to me as a kid. I mean, there are people who saw and thought more of me than I thought of myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably why Roger kept pressing you though.
Yeah.
Him and other people probably did see something in you though. Sometimes it be like that. They see something in you can't see it in yourself at that moment.
I mean, my mom, the angel that she is, man, like the wise person that she is. I mean, she's looked out for me so many times. I mean, the education has never stopped though, even to the day. You know what I mean? Like she just the matriarch, man, and like she just takes care of people. You know what I mean? And it's not lost on me what she's given up in terms of her own personal success to be able to provide for others. And so that giving nature, I think, is something that she showered us with, and I picked up those values and those traits, and that's part of why I serve, because I think it's my duty. I think it's my call, and I know it's my purpose. But we need other people to also want to do it. You know what I mean? Because while I think my perspective on this 13-member council is somewhat unique, we need others with, similar backgrounds, experiences, perspectives to want to do this too.
Yeah.
Because, we cannot lose this city.
No question.
I talk to my princess all the time about this. Like, I feel the way that I do, I'm so passionate about this work. You see it weighing on me the way that it does because I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm not shit passing it. I'm not like just fly by. I'm not coming through. I'm stopping, get this good job, and then I'm gonna parlay that into something in some other place. I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere, right? Like and if it means I have to keep fighting, then I'm gonna keep fighting. But I also want it to be a city where my girls want to be, where your girls want to be, right? I think it is just human nature to want for your kids more opportunity than you have for yourself. But then I think a lot, especially today, is this a place where when my kids get to be a certain age, whether they go off to college, they go do something else professionally that has them leave the city temporarily, will they want to come back?
Yeah.
Will they see themselves in the District of Columbia of 2027, 8, 2032, right? I mean, it's the work that we're putting in today that allows them to build on that foundation that was laid well before I was doing this work.
Sure.
So I can't have the foundation crumble. I got to shore it up, and that's part of what my work is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen you. I remember, and this is, I'm not going to belabor this conversation because we've been talking for a while. We got to do a part 2 and 3 and 4.
Nah,
probably,
we surely
right?
do because I got no
But
question.
my final thing though, really along those lines. I mean, I've seen that work. I remember, personal story. We work in the campaign for re-election 2018. We go out, we win the election by with 70% of the vote, right? It's a celebration. Everybody's inside the campaign office. He gets up to speak, and he's like in like a righteous rage about the plight of the city. Everybody else in the room is like, "Oh, we won." He's like, "Nah, man, people are still dying." 70% of the vote, and this is that speaks to the character of who he is.
Bruh, man, this stuff literally keeps me up at night, man.
Oh, we know.
Like, it keeps me up at night. You know what I mean? It's not just the fact that I still hear the sirens. I still see the yellow tape. The gunshot still rang out. You still got little girls being killed. It is that. And it is the fact that some people don't think anybody down at the Wilson building is fighting for them. And I need them to understand that I am, right? Like I'm fighting for them. I want them to be here. I want them to get that opportunity to work at the post office. I want them to get the opportunity to play for a coach that was like a father figure. I want them to get the opportunity to fail at college, but then turn it around, right? And perhaps become a lawyer, right? I want them to see that trajectory in their life. And unless we utilize government and all the tools that are at our disposal to present them with that opportunity, we cannot expect them to show up at the Wilson Building. They're not coming downtown for that. What they will do is mimic what they see in their neighborhood, whatever that opportunity looks like.
As we close, right, I just want to create some space. You just mentioned your wife, Princess.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your 2 beautiful girls as well. And I'm thinking about that, right? Your hopes of that young, people, young boys can grow up and do them things, have those options, and they'll be blessed enough to meet a young girl from this city that is doing great things as you did, right? And build such a strong foundation in family and so on and so forth. What has the relationship with your wife meant for you personally and professionally? And I was on a call with her this morning too.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We on a call together this morning. Yeah. So you know, as we end, can you talk to us about that and how vital is that to have somebody like that?
What does it mean? Everything. Yeah. Like everything, right? Like to have a partner, to have a best friend, to have somebody who you know is going to be there if you fall, right? If you don't succeed at something. To not have to guess or wonder whether you have that support means everything. You know, like you're willing to take certain risks. Yeah. You know what I mean? Professionally, personally, because you know you have that true partner, that thought partner, that you know, I mean, everything, man. Like, when I first ran for office, I left my dream job at DOJ. I was a civil rights attorney, driving the country, doing what I always wanted to do. I mean, not always, what I wanted to do professionally when I became a lawyer. I wanted to do that. That was I wanted to be that guy. Like, you know, I think about all the civil rights lawyers who came through Justice Department. And when I told her I was going to run for office, I wanted to do that. She asked a couple questions, but like she had my back. Yeah. And she just gave birth to our second daughter. And guess what? I couldn't run for office and keep that job at DOJ. I had to leave that job. So she was the one still working, not complaining, showing up, campaigning. One baby in her hand, one baby in the stroller. You know what I mean? Like, so I wouldn't be here without her. I mean, I would not be here. That just, like 95 is when I met her. To see her ambition and her aspirations and want to match that, right? You know what I mean? Like that, part of that, you know, part of it is, you know, what you develop growing up in the neighborhood, the resiliency, things like that. But like, she was focused in a way that I simply wasn't. And then to be able to give up that postal service job, I ain't talking about that. Like, you know how many people told me how stupid I was to leave the postal service?
Yeah, you lunch.
I mean, some family members were like, man, you gonna give up that job? Like, give it to me. I need that job. But my wife, my girlfriend was like, you should go, you should do it. I got you. Like, let's take and if it don't work out, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? So she has meant everything to me as a life partner, wife, but then just the mother that she is. Like, I can leave this earth tomorrow. If she here with my girls, they gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Sure enough, man.
I married up, just like y'all, right?
Yeah, no question.
I married up, no doubt about it.
No question, right. No question,
Yeah.
man. We appreciate you for being here.
Man, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Now, can I say that though? I mean, I appreciate y'all for what y'all are doing. You know, having these conversations is as real as it gets. And just, I'll say people need to just really push this out so more people can hear it. I mean, I've tuned in a number of the conversations y'all had. I'm trying to make my way through it. But keep up the good work, man. Keep having these conversations, man, and really keep having people on here who are going to tell it like it is. You know what I mean? And share stuff that I don't think, I'll say for myself personally, I'm not getting these conversations in other places. So I appreciate what y'all are doing.
That's it. And one time for Ricardo Durham, man.
Question.
All four of us in this room right here, definitely. Man.
Love and miss you, man.
He probably be smiling right now watching this.
You already know, man.
Once again, thank everybody for watching Heart of the City. You guys keep showing up and watching. We're going to keep talking and bringing you the conversations that you want to listen in on. So until next time, peace and love.
Heart of the City.